We've seen a lot of opposition to it coming out already. I think it's going to get really significant scrutiny, not just in the United States by the Department of Justice, but likely also in Europe and by the UK and possibly some other jurisdictions as well. But they're going to look at these overlaps, which in this case are both horizontal, that's in streaming. They both both companies provide streaming services, but they're also vertical. You have a big streaming service buying a big movie and TV producer and a big content, a library of content. And that creates vertical issues. And when a company is really strong in both levels of a supply chain, when they vertically integrate this way, that can raise concerns too. So the Department of Justice is going to have to dig into both of those issues. And last, Paul, I'll say this because we haven't seen very much about it, but there's also what we call a monopsony concern here. Monopsony is when a merger results in too few buyers of a service or product. So in this case, you've got two huge creators of scripted content that are coming together, and that could have a negative impact on the artists, the production people, the writers that go into making all the TV and movie content that the companies make.
Jennifer, walk us through what exactly happens to the deal if the DOJ or regulators more broadly decide to push back on this.
Sure. So there are a couple different things that can happen. I'll start by saying this in-depth investigation usually starts by issuing what are called second requests for information. Those are like really big subpoenas where they're going to get a lot of business documents, a lot of data and information from the companies. Now, once the DOJ has looked at all that material, they have to decide either they clear it outright, they clear it with a negotiated settlement with the companies, or they sue to try to block it in trial. A negotiated settlement could mean agreeing to divest a product such as HBO Max or agreeing to behavioral remedies such as making promises about the way the post-merger firm will behave in the marketplace. But if something like that can't be agreed upon, then the only thing the DOJ has left to do is go to trial and seek a permanent injunction from a judge that blocks the companies from closing the deal. They did that when AT&T tried to buy Time Warner many years ago. But I'll contrast that to when Comcast bought NBCU. They also had some concerns there, but they entered a settlement agreement with respect to that deal.
Jen, politics. I think politics is going to come into this deal, maybe more so than some others here. Generally, I guess on the one hand, we have an administration that presumably is more open to consolidation across industries, taking a lighter touch. But then there's also a president who makes it personal oftentimes. Do we have any idea how that might shake out?
Paul, you're exactly right. And it makes it so hard nowadays to actually really do a true antitrust analysis of a deal because we have seen the Department of Justice and the Federal Trade Commission, I could say, aligning with the Trump administration in antitrust outcomes for deals and pushing the policy priorities of the administration and listening to what the president has to say. So where the president and the administration is against a deal, there's a higher risk, I would say, of that deal having to defend itself in court and the Department of Justice seeking a block. But on the other hand, Paul, we don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. We've seen some of these companies to mergers hire some Trump-aligned lobbyists, powerful people in Washington that have helped them to push through the deal. That was the allegation with respect to the settlement the DOJ entered when Hewlett-Packard bought Juniper. We don't know what other kinds of concessions or agreements are being made. This is all sort of the backroom channels. And without knowing that, it's hard to understand where the administration may come out months from now in the end on the deal. But at least for right now, we know that the administration doesn't look happy about this buyer. They would have preferred Paramount.